80% of this job, or 80% of anyone being a QA manager or a food safety manager, is handling people. And 20% is actually getting the job done or the technical skills. Like you have the technical skills, you can do it in your sleep. Yeah, no question about that. But it's about the Pareto's principle where the 80% is like, how do you influence people into making the right decisions? How do you promote, like to your point, the food safety culture? How do you make people understand the consequences of even a very simple action as like not washing hands? How do you make people understand the importance of what they do?
Welcome to That's a Food Job, the podcast that explores careers in the agri-food industry through real stories and practical insights. I am your host, Veronica Hislop, and today I'm sitting down with Aparajhitha Sudarshan, a quality and regulatory manager and food safety consultant. Apara is a food process engineer by trade, but her career has taken her through many aspects of the industry, including agriculture, baby food, aseptic processing, fresh juice, and now pet food manufacturing, where she currently leads a food safety team. What stood out most in this conversation wasn't the technical side of the job, but just how much of it comes down to people. Apara walked me through that idea, along with the soft skills that nobody teaches you in school, and some of the not favorable realities of building a career in an industry where every day brings something different. I think this is a great conversation to get the behind-the-scenes look, and let's dig into this conversation with Apara.
I'm a quality and regulatory manager. Currently, I'm at a pet food company, but I have previously worked in baby food, aseptic processing, agriculture, and fresh juice processing. So my role is taking care of the food safety and regulatory compliance. And that's my full-time job, but I'm also a food safety and regulatory consultant on the side where I help small and medium business owners with, import-export compliance, if they need trainings for their team, setting up the back-end process, equipment, help. So I kind of do the end-to-end process as a consultant as well.
Amazing. Wow, there sounds like there's so many different things that you can look at when it comes from like the day-to-day nitty-gritty, making sure that the lines are okay, but then just like that long-term planning as well that maybe someone might not think as much about.
Yes, absolutely. And it's all about the foundation at the end of the day. Any business, but especially in the food, you've got to have the foundation right if you want to succeed in terms of, because you're at the end of the day playing with people's safety. It's food that people consume. So you've got to make sure your foundation is right, you're doing the right things, because it's a matter of life and death.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's I guess we can talk a little bit about some of the foundations. I know you talked about that just briefly right now, but in your mind, like what are the foundations of food safety?
Yes, I would say the first and foremost is the technical aspect of it. Yes, that's gonna come, that's a constantly evolving subject, but the right attitude as a business owner, the right attitude of your team matters so much in making the food that you make and having it reach an everyday consumer. Because at the end of the day, even if you're a business owner in the food space, you're a consumer as well. So having that attitude is the first and foremost thing as a foundation. And then having the right set of people to bring in that technical knowledge, but also putting in the systems in place to make sure you're delivering the consistently safe food throughout. That's very important.
How do you even start to translate? Like you said about your team, it's a very people and working with it, but like people are people. You can't just like program like a computer and say, oh, you're going to do this. And how do you build that team culture or the soft skills, I guess you could say?
I think a lot of it, one thing I've realized about people is that the more people see, the more people experience, a collective experience, always goes a long way in them realizing the importance of what they do. And to give you an example, is like make people see what is happening out there. So there's too much information out there right now. There's a lot of access to resources where there's constantly recalls happening everywhere across the globe. Make people see what is happening. There are live case studies like published by multiple organizations. There's live situations unraveling in front of us. For example, the pistachio recall in Canada, right? So those are life situations where you can actually sit down and talk to your team about what is happening, what goes on in the back end of it. There's a lot of workshops that are happening that are organized by the government, that are organized by universities, where you get to learn firsthand what happens in the back end of it. What is the extent of, say, a food poisoning, or what is the extent of a food recall? What happens to people? So when people see that, when they experience or they get close to it, I always feel like there's that personal connection, and that really gets ingrained in people. And then the drive is there. So it's a constant reassurance, it's a constant exposure to things happening out there, live case studies, and that's something that I've seen that always works.
It's interesting because you want them to experience, get to that feeling with obviously them not experiencing food
Of
safety
course,
illness.
no,
So like
yes,
that's an interesting line to manage. And I guess we'll take a step back, and I'd like to just put that into perspective in your job in terms of like tasks. So like, can you walk through a little bit about like what a typical week or day would look like for you? Like, what are some of the key things that you do in your role as a manager?
okay. So one thing about this role is that no 2 days are the same. You go in, you're like, oh hey, what am I having? So that's the best part of the job because it keeps you on your toes. There's always risks out there. There's never a doubt of that. So it's like, okay, what am I tackling today? And it's a constant way of also challenging yourself, like how creative can you be with your solutions? And I always say this, and I've had a lot of mentors who've always said this to me as well. And now the more and more I grow in the role, the more and more it comes back to me. It's like 80% of this job, or 80% of anyone being a QA manager or a food safety manager, is handling people. And 20% is actually getting the job done, or the technical skills. Like you have the technical skills,
Hmm.
you can do it in your sleep. Yeah, no question about that. But it's about the Pareto's principle, where the 80% is like, how do you influence people into making the right decisions? How do you promote, like to your point, the food safety culture? How do you make people understand the consequences of even a very simple action as like not washing hands? How do you make people understand the importance of what they do? So 80% of your job is that. So yes, I would say like administratively, if I were to talk about my job, it's like, you go on the production floor, a typical one would be like, you do your pre-ops, you do your swabbing, you talk to people because, like I said, a lot of it is influencing people. A lot of it is promoting that culture, promoting that importance. So you talk to people. The more people are involved, the more people are feeling seen, the more they're going to be involved in what they do. And if they see something wrong, you're the first person they're going to call because they know they feel seen. So it's like going and talking to the people, having a run on the production floor, checking if everything is okay, doing a mini GMP inspection, and then come back, check paperwork, sign off, do verifications, and all of that. And then a lot of it is also like, okay, we're getting a new ingredient, a new supplier. Now, how are we going to approve the supplier? What are the things we need from the supplier? Is everything okay with the ingredient? Going and doing raw material testing. So it's a bunch of multiple tasks. But yes, no 2 days are the same.
It sounds like it. So yeah, let's dive a little bit more into you mentioned like pre-ops, so going out on the floor. So as someone who's in like food safety and you're going out there, like you're not just taking your swabs, you're like actually like speaking with people, doing those types of things. Okay. So would it be just like general conversation? Would it be, I guess you mentioned pre-op, so I assume that's like before like the shift
Okay, yeah,
changes
before
or
the
that.
production.
So I guess
Mhm.
it's like asking, hey, did you do your checks for the thing? Like, what kind of conversations are there?
So I usually do a mix of both because you don't also want to just have a conversation where you're just talking about work because then people don't really engage. You're like, hey, have a small chit chat, like, how's your morning been? How's family in general? Just having those a little bit of a personal conversation where they also feel seen as a person. And that goes a long way in relationship building because you've got to understand that a lot of people don't understand this is that the production staff are your eyes and ears. especially when it comes to food safety and in general, anything with respect to the product. So spending the time to develop that relationship with them goes a long way. So it's about like, how's your family been? How are kids in general, like that? And then taking a walk with them and like say, okay, tell me, what did you observe here? What was the issue here? Okay. Oh, it was not cleaned properly. Okay. What did you do? Did you talk to the supervisor? Did they have it cleaned? Okay. What did you do then? Okay.
Hmm.
And what did you observe? And the doctors, oh, there was a problem. There's a gap. Okay. Did you put that on the checklist? Okay. I will take that with me to fix that. So it's those conversations where it's like, yeah, not just a checklist, but it's also like capturing what we need to do. We still need to get the job done.
Hmm. I wonder if schools are teaching things like that because you mentioned technical skills, and obviously you learn that. And like, I'm thinking of like some people might come to food safety with a chemistry degree. Like, I don't think I ever got a class. Like, I think you got like the English class about books or something like that. That's like been my experience. But actually learning how to talk with people, like, I don't think I got taught about that. So that's like a little surprising.
It is a underrated soft skill, to be honest. And when I entered the industry, this is something that I've had to learn in every role that I've played is that, like I said, getting the job done is just 20%, but then how you're getting the job done, um, having the right people around you, having the right team around you is what determines how successful you are in ensuring the product is safe and like how successful your team is in general. So yes, I think it's a soft skill that everybody needs to learn, and it's going to be very subjective based on your experience and the surroundings that you've been put through. But yes, I wish there was a way um, we were taught this in school because we would all kill it at this.
Yeah, I know. It's just and learning to talk with different people because when you're in college, you generally speak with people like I mean, you're all in the same program, so you generally speak to people
Mhm.
that are similar. But then when you go in the
Yeah,
workforce, like you have everyone from every background and like different
exactly.
mannerisms, and it's like how do you read their face? You know, some people are quiet, but how do you get the like? Yeah, I could imagine that's a little. It's I guess it is a bit of experience. Like you can only teach so much, and then it's like you learn as you're on the job.
I've had a mentor once in my previous role. He said a statement that has stuck on to me till date. He actually once put me through an exercise where it was an audit. It was a big company customer audit,
Mm-hmm.
and I walked into the room, and he just pulled me aside. And I was leading the audit. It was the first time. I was just there in that company for like 3 months, and I was already in an audit. So he just pulled me aside. He's like, "Okay, I have a game to play." It was a 2 day audit. I was like, "Okay." And he's like, "You're gonna walk into this room, and we're gonna have a conversation at the end of the day, but you're gonna tell me who's the most important person in this room." And he's like, use your own sense of judgment, be it body language, whatever it is. At the end of the day, we'll talk. And then happened. And then the end of the day, we had a debrief session. He's like, okay, so what do you think? Who's the decision maker? And I was like, I was still pretty early on in my career. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, yeah, it was this guy, this auditor guy. The one who was asking a lot of questions and who I was interacting with. And he just had a smile. And he's like, okay, we'll talk tomorrow, the next day. I was like, okay. And I knew that that person was not because he had that smile. And then the next day, after all that audit was over and everything, he's like, okay, who do you think it is? And I was like, yep, I was wrong yesterday. It was another lady who was completely silent throughout the audit. She was just a mere observer. But towards the end of the audit, she made the decision on how the audit went and how they wanted to do it and what is the timeline and like how they want to take the business forward and how they envision this relationship and all of that. And that was not the lady I was expecting at all because she was not even a subject matter expert in what we were doing as well. Um, and then he said, "You'll only remember this in life always because this is what you need to chase, experience." He said, "You're only as good as what you've seen." And that line is, for me, time and again, it keeps coming back. It's so profound. It's so simple, but it's very profound and it's very true. So the more experience you get, the more seasoned professional you become. And yeah, it keeps coming back.
Oh, that's good. I like that. And it's almost kind of nice. It feels like something to look forward to in a way because as you start to grow, you're like, I don't have to spend as much time remembering, like, once swabbing becomes like second nature or doing this, then you can, okay, I got that technical skill, like you said, that 20%, but now it's like, now I can pay attention a little bit more what's going on around as it happens. And
Exactly. Yes. You learn to be more observant, aware, more in tune with what's happening out there because people influence people. That's the way the world works, right? So yes, that's a soft skill that I think everybody has to work on constantly because that's what's going to take you forward.
would you say that has been one of the most like surprising things about your role or like in general with food safety, or would it be something else?
I would say definitely that because when I graduated out of school, there was not a lot of resources. Like I said, to tell you like, hey, this is what you need. My understanding out of university was that, yep, I have these certifications. Yep, I have this degree. I have this background. It should be fine. I can get the job. But a lot of times, you getting a job is very less about the technical skills and more about how you come out as a person to the person who is interviewing. Because remember, sometimes when you go to conferences, you get 2 minutes with somebody,
Mm-hmm.
or in interviews, you get like what, 15 minutes to half an hour, and you've got to make that impression. And a lot of it is how you project yourself, your personality, the way you talk, your general outlook. Um, so for me, it was a learning curve where it's like, there's technical aspect. Yes, there's definitely respect for that. You definitely need to have that, but it's also something that you can build on in your career, as in when you meet people, as in when you get mentors, as in when you get different experiences. But the soft skills are something that nobody can teach you. It's something that you learn, adapt, hone it, polish it, and then build more on it. And that is something that, yes, schools can give you probably the first step towards it, but it's about how you take it and how you um, kind of, what's the right word, infuse it into your personality. It's more about that. So it's very subjective and it's going to be unique to you.
I definitely want to dive a little bit deeper into that a little later in the conversation, but I do want to do a little bit of a setup in terms of how you got to this position, like just so we have some context of your background. Did you come? Would you be able to just walk through a few key steps to how you got to where you are, and then we can start, leading back into that soft skills a little bit later.
Okay. So a little bit about a background about me is that I am a food process engineer. In my bachelor's, like that's where my specialization is. So learning the fundamentals of food, like biochemistry, equipment design, food process engineering in general, how food matrices interact with each other, the regulatory aspect of it. That's kind of where my background is. And then when I came to Guelph to do my engineering degree with specialization in food science, for me it was more about like I was always more interested in the microbiology, the food safety aspect of it, just trying to understand like how I can put together this world of okay, there's lab, there's micro, but what's the practical nature of it? How do bring in the technologies that I was working on to the commercial aspect of it? So I pretty much started out after graduation in the agriculture sector as a food safety, regulatory, and health and safety coordinator, kind of handling the whole GFSI program, handling their audits, CFI audits, and then I moved on to baby food and aseptic processing. So I remember spouted pouches where you have the baby food, all those brands that you see out there. So kind of working in that where I grew from a quality control supervisor to a corporate quality manager, handling two sites across Canada and US. And then I joined a fresh juice processing company where I was again the quality and food safety manager. And then more recently, I am in the pet food space because I was like, okay, I've done a bit of human. Let me see how the pet food world is. So that's where I am. And a lot of it, I would say, I didn't start out with having any certifications when I graduated from school. I didn't carry a lot of certifications. A lot of certifications that I did were um, on the job, on required. But having said that, there's a lot of resources for any graduates that want to step foot into the industry, there's a lot of free resources, free certifications that you can do that can give you the right foundation, the right step towards understanding just the language that the industry speaks. And then you can always build on that knowledge once you enter the job.
Wow, I love that. I love that you've done different industries. You also started with that engineering background and then, went to agriculture. You've done it's just like there's so many different areas to explore, each with their own like new things,
Challenges and yes,
challenges.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that is to see. Do you, I guess they, I guess with all the different industries, would you say now that you've been on the other side, would you say like pet food's very different than like baby food or like agriculture? Do they feel very different?
They do in the sense that the challenges are different, but the fundamentals are the
Okay.
same. In a way that your approach towards food safety is always going to be the same, except that the the hazards are different, like the challenges, like I said, are
Mm,
different. And how you view risk is going to be different because, of course, um, sometimes in the kind of agriculture that I was in, the risk is predominantly lesser with what I was dealing with because at the end of the day, people still wash the kind of ingredients I was dealing with. People still have to go home, cook it, or wash it. So the
hmm.
risk is different. Whereas in baby food, it's like you're dealing with a sensitive population. So you've got to make sure that the product that's going out of your facility is like absolutely safe even if you have an iota of doubt that there's something wrong with the product, you'd rather not release it. So the risks you're dealing with
Okay.
is different, but the foundations are the same, I would say.
Okay. So dealing with risk is a big difference with it. And then
Mhm.
I guess the end consumer, obviously you want everything to be safe, but like even the degree more, like it's like how you manage the risk is different. Okay. And I guess, we have been speaking about soft skills and then like, I guess my question is like, is there a way to train the skills prior to graduating? Or is it just something that you have to just embrace that you're going to get the experience when you're on the job? Do you think there's like a way to practice, I guess, now?
There's definitely ways to do that. I'm not saying like again, experience is the best teacher for
Mm-hmm.
sure, but there's like resources out there, I would say. I had I had a colleague once who actually introduced me to Toastmasters. That's
Mm-hmm.
one good platform where you actually get to connect with people who are completely from a different background, such as yours. And then you just get to talking on a common topic. So it helps you with, for example, having that small talk, having that sustained conversation, coming off as confident. So there's resources like that where, or just go to like community events or take part in conferences, volunteer in conference committees, where you get to meet people from diverse backgrounds or even people who you look up to as a senior in your field and who you want as a mentor. And have those conversations, build those network because when you start talking to them, you're going to be like the first time you're like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Oh, I could have framed that better.
Mm.
But then the next time when you talk to someone, your brain has that mental capacity to be more polished, more refined, and project yourself better, right? It's a constant game of improving yourself, improving on your conversations, and improving on how you put yourself out there.
It kind of reminds me almost like what at the beginning conversation mentioning about like observation, because then when you put yourself in the situation, like I can imagine the first time you're at for those who don't like, just to confirm, like Toastmasters is when you like make a speech and like you present it to other people. Like, actually, what is Toastmasters?
So it's a bunch of group of people. So they have Toastmaster club for different areas. Like for example, I'm based out of Etobicoke. There's a group here. I'm sure there's a group like that's based out of Brampton, for example. So it's a lot of different people from different backgrounds coming together, and they give you a topic, and then you've got to do an impromptu talk on it. And of course, you're gonna be like, how would I talk for like 5 minutes about an apple? But that's the whole point of it, right? You don't have to be a subject matter expert, but you've got to be on your toes, and it teaches you awareness, being self-aware, but also being aware of your surroundings. And then if you see the crowd kind of going a little bit uninterested, then you know how to steer it back. So it's a lot of practice on like public speaking, but they also have other events as well that they do. But I have only been a part of these kind of stand-up conversations, for the
Okay.
lack of a better term. But yes,
Oh, okay, thank you. I just want to make sure for those listening that they might not know. Actually, my
yeah,
my partner does Toastmasters as well, and it's really fun to listen to, like when they do speeches or like he'll do
yeah,
random topics, and he'll tell me about. He's like, I got to do storytelling. It's like, how do I? I had to talk about the most random thing, and it's
yes,
interesting to hear, and that learning about like body language because you got to read the crowd.
yes,
And I guess it's
yes.
also good that you don't have to be pardon me, you don't have to be like a expert matter. You don't have to be an expert on the
Subject matter
top. Yeah,
expert,
there
yes,
we go. There we go. You don't have to be because that's the crowd doesn't want to hear about like a super
yes.
well defined that. And I guess even like on the production floor, yes, you have to like say about how important food safety is, but you can't just be like, well, the microbes are like this and that, and
Yeah,
it's
you
like
can't go all technical jargon. Yeah,
yeah, it's like that connection. So that's a good idea because it's gets you, and even if you don't pursue food safety or if you don't like, it's like good skills for the rest of your life. I could like everywhere else.
yes, very true. And especially right now with there's so much going on with like AI and like there's always that uncertainty that AI is gonna replace your job and everything. And then these kind of conversations where you build that network with people, where you build that one-on-one connection, that's how people are gonna remember you, and that's how people are gonna have that recall value
Mm-hmm.
about you. So it becomes all the more important where that public speaking, that interpersonal relationship skills become more and more important.
Yeah, and I guess about doing these, like you mentioned, community events, which I think is also a really great idea. If you're in your community, you odds are going to see these individuals again, but at the same time, it might be large enough that you might not, because maybe if you go to a food safety conference and then you kind of mess up, I do think I could be wrong, but I feel like there is some grace where people realize like you're a student, you're kind of new, but at the same time, like they will remember. So it kind of does give you
Mhm.
the opportunity to kind of practice those like get the nervousness out of talking because yeah, I know for myself like those early conferences I was so nervous and I'm think back I'm like I shouldn't have said like I wish I didn't interact with that. Like one of the things I regret the most is when I was doing my co-ops or like I was still in school and I was like I need a co-op so badly and I just felt like I just felt like I was giving off the energy of I need a job and I totally like thinking back on it I really regret doing that because I just don't think that's the way to do it. But yeah, probably the community events would have been probably good for me to just like focus on how to talk to people without like that one goal in mind.
But again, to your point, right? You wouldn't have known where you've had to improve if you hadn't fumbled or if you hadn't made that mistake in
Mm-hmm.
your head. But it's not a mistake, it's again a learning. And that's the the mindset shift that everybody needs is that we're not perfect. And in this phase of life, we're having this goal and this is how we're approaching it. But yes, now that I look back, I could have done it better, but doesn't necessarily mean that I did something wrong. And it's all part of the learning curve. And as long as a student who's potentially looking for a career opportunity approaches with that mindset of curiosity, hey, I'm here to learn. I am not afraid to make mistakes. I'm not afraid to apologize when I make mistakes. I am okay being vulnerable in a way like, yep, I fumbled. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to pick myself up and move on. As long as a person has that attitude, they have a long way to go in terms of like their growth. Like they're going to grow because those are the kind of people that the industry always looks for and everybody looks for because you are that fresh breath of air, right? It's literally is that don't look at it as a mistake, but look at it as, ooh, I did that. I'm glad I did that because I know where to work on. I know what I did. I know where I could build on.
I like that attitude. And it's about not being hard on yourself. I agree because
Me
like
too. Yes,
there's so many things going against us. We don't need to be our worst enemy as well.
very exactly. And some days are hard, not denying. Some
Yeah.
days you are the worst critic to yourself, but it's about that constant reassurance and telling that to yourself, like, cut some slack. It's fine. But this is what I'm gonna do. Having that foresight, having that acknowledgement that yes, this is what I'm gonna do. I know it. It's fine. I'm just gonna take that as a learning. That's the key.
Yeah, that is true. And I know that this question, I know we're talking about, having experiences and like it's okay to make mistakes. But that being said, with a question moving forward, thinking about students going to maybe like a food safety event, like a conference, or they're going to some kind of professional in the food industry, do you ever see like mistakes that you see students making that you would maybe advise not to, or is there any like general advice that you would give them just so they're not totally learning from experience initially?
Okay. A couple of things that I would say is that um, don't just try to build a connection at the conference by just starting out like, "Hey, I'm looking for a job. Do you have a job?"
Mm,
You've lost the other person right then and there, right? Because this shows that you're not genuinely interested in what they do. You haven't communicated anywhere in this conversation, like, do you even know who I am? Or do you even know what
mm,
I do? Nothing, right? It's just that. So don't come off of like that. And I think even before you get to a conference stage, if you know you're attending a conference, 2, 3 months before that, start looking into who are the people who are attending the conferences. If you go onto these conference websites, they usually have a page where they have the list of
yeah.
attendees, companies, right? Go through that. And then go on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is your best friend. Go on LinkedIn and see. Usually people start posting a few months in advance, like, hey, I'm attending this event. And they would tag that for visibility, right? So go on to the conference's LinkedIn page and see who are all the attendees or who are the people from different companies attending. Give them a follow, send them a connection request with a note like, hey, I saw that you are attending this conference. I would love to connect with you and learn more about what you do. Like just, have
Yeah.
send it to under that word limit note and start following people. And they could be a mentors, or they could be somebody who have just entered that company. Start doing that and start genuinely connecting with those people, having those conversations, building up those conversations, because now it is not that you are looking for a job, but you're genuinely having those conversations and people then remember you. So now when you go into that conference and you bump into them, and they're like, "Hey, we've been talking on LinkedIn." And they're like, "Oh yeah, you were right,
Mm,
guy. Yeah, I know we've been talking. So how are you? What do you do now? Have you found a role yet?" It's a
mm,
very natural conversation that happens because now they remember you as a person they've been talking to on LinkedIn. Now they remember your face and they would remember your name more than they probably would have remembered just on LinkedIn, for example. And now, when you say, yeah, I've been looking, I'm just going to be graduating in like a couple of months. I've been looking, I've been polishing, for example, my resume. Would you mind sharing like what are some of the certifications that you would say for somebody who wants to get into a role, so and so role? What would you suggest? And they would say, you can do this. You know what? I know somebody who can do it for cheap. Don't spend the money. I know somebody who can do it for half the price or whatever. And they can connect you to somebody who can do the training. Or they'll be like, hey, I know somebody who's hiring. Let me put you on to them. Just remind me, send me a reminder on LinkedIn. I would connect you to them. I will set up a meeting for you. Bam, there you go. And all you do is after the conference, like wait 2, 3 days for the conference rush to come down, and then send them a reminder. Hey, gentle reminder based on our conversation. I would love to have a chat. There, you have a meeting within a week. So it's building those organic connections. And then once you have that meeting, you land the job, you don't land the job, that's secondary, but then go back to them and thank them like, hey, I really appreciate that. I would really love to stay connected. This worked out, this didn't work out, but thank you so much. But then if, for example, it didn't work out, they would be like, you know what, I have another, I can hook you on to somebody else. It's fine. And they would give that personal recommendation because I'm like, I met this person because now they have a vibe of how you are as a person in physical because I've met you physically. So they would be more than happy to give you that recommendation, and that goes a long way.
I'm writing
And
that
now,
down,
and
writing
then,
that down.
and at the next conference, say in another 3, 4 months, you have another conference, and they bump into you, they would be like, "Hey, Veronica, hi, nice to see you here. I see that you're attending these conferences. That's good." They would remember you, and I, and this is such an effective way. Um, to build those networks because now you're no longer just that person who is just a student who's just come out, but you're that graduate who is like, yep, she graduated, but she knows what she's doing. She is doing the right things. That definitely sets you apart from the rest of the crowd. And like I said, the recall value exists. So now in the next conference or something, if you're like, oh, that is very expensive, and you're like, hey, do you know how I can do this? And they'll be like, oh, no, they're running a discount here. So you could probably go through this organization, be a part of this organization. And then you have another wider range of network because they're connecting you to other groups.
I like that. And then as well, it also gives you like a little bit of a control. Like if you're not someone who can just go up to someone and you're not like there's some people who are really great at just walking up to someone and being like, "Hey, how are you doing? What do you do?" I get it. That is very scary. But then if you kind of do this pre-preparation, well, you now have that information to know, "Oh, this is who that person is." And it also can build up your own curiosity because now you're like, "Oh, I do know that this person has this topic background or they spoke about this or I know that they worked at this company," and it just can give you a little bit of that confidence you might not have if you like freshly just go and speak to someone.
Exactly. And it's like to your point, that preparation, because if you know what each company does, if you know what each person is doing, even when you go to the conference, say, this is just one person I'm talking about, but you want to go and build a network there, you want to be able to first identify who that person is. You want to have a mental, for the lack of a better term, a mental list of people you want to network with. Always be very strategic when you attend these conferences. It's like, these are the booths or these are the sessions I want to attend. These are the people I want to meet and develop a conversation with. But for that, you need to know who looks how, who does what,
Yes.
and like what kind of, just like have a mental list of what kind of questions you would like to ask in general. And don't center it around, hey, I'm looking for a job. Just center it around, like, what would your advice be? Put the other person in the talking podium where they're like, ask about their experience, ask about what they would suggest, what they would advise, what they have seen. Um, One fundamental trick is that people love to talk about themselves, right? So
Yes.
you
Yes.
want to do that, but you also want to do that in a way where it's organic, where you're there to learn because that's the end goal. You're there to learn. Stay curious. So once you carry that energy, the other person would automatically read your body language and it's going to turn into an organic conversation by itself. Don't force yourself into it in a way that like I have to keep this conversation running. If you're seeing it fizzling out, let it go. It's okay.
That's another good piece of advice too, because sometimes it's like, do I leave? Do I not? But yeah, like,
Yeah.
you know, they also have people that they want to talk to as well. Like it's okay. But I like that, and also it just like builds your own map of the whole industry. Like, irregardless of if you're going to get a job from this person, well, now you might see that this player, oh, this is like a I don't know, let's say an ingredient company. Oh yeah, I remember that they're doing this, or it can just like
Yes.
build your own excitement for the industry because like these conferences are also not just for networking. There's that knowledge exchange, and you might not even know what you don't know that you like yet, so it gives you the opportunity to just learn.
Exactly. Yes. It's
Yeah.
so true. That is so true. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, yeah. And then as well, like speaking with you, maybe, you know, I just, you mentioned, and I'd love, not right now, but in the future, it'd be fun to like learn more about those risks and the difference between the pet food and the baby food, and just like, why did you find it different? Why do you like, what would someone who likes this like preferably? And just like, it's just cool, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's confidence are such a great opportunity. And again, with the LinkedIn, maybe the person doesn't like connect with you on LinkedIn, but then you're like commenting on their conference thing. Oh, looking forward to this talk. And then who knows, maybe by you doing it, someone wants to talk to you. Like maybe another student gets comfortable and says, oh, I saw they were talking a lot. I'm going to go talk to you, because it's not just people in the industry. Also, even talking to other students can be great. You know, learn about their co-op opportunities, learn about, you know, their school, and just make friends because they're going to eventually get jobs too one day, and you know, maybe they can build lifelong friendships as well.
And that is so true. And this is something that I think early on for me, it was a, a huge learning. And I've always approached every conversation, no matter somebody who's a student, somebody who's very senior, no matter who it is. always approach a conversation from a point of learning, from a point of curiosity. I'm like, what am I going to learn from this person today? Or like, what am I going to learn about this person? Always approach any conversation with that because it only shows that you respect them, you respect the conversation, but it goes a long way in a subtle way of showing that a person that you value the relationship. And to your point, that is a lifelong friendship um, and a professional relationship that it could turn into.
Yeah, no, these are all really good pieces of advice when it comes to just like attending conferences, and they're low stakes. Like there's different opportunities. If you're not feeling confident to go speak at someone at a conference yet, start with Toastmasters. If even Toastmasters seems too scary for you, go to a community event. Like it really sounds like a big part of it is just like don't stay in your computer, like in your
Hmm.
bedroom, go out there, try different things. And if I understand, like maybe there is accessibility issues where someone can't get to somewhere, can you find something on campus that you can do? Can you find this? Like it's just about like getting out there and trying, it feels like.
There's a lot of, to your point, the campus events as well. For example, I know this is a big thing in US where the Institute of Food Technologists, IFT, so
Mm-hmm.
they have in each college or university, they have individual chapters for like food science or somebody who's specializing in dairy science. Um, and similarly, not to that scale, but we still do have student chapters here by the CIFST. And I know there's a big group in Manitoba as well that leads it. And we also have it in Ontario. So there's like small local chapters where you can be involved, where it's like students who are in academia, alumni who are also part of this, alumni who are in the industry and have partnerships still with the universities. So there's like local chapters that you can be a part of, actively participate in. And then you can also be a part of, like, for example, IFT from here, where you can understand what are the kind of research and conversations going around. And who knows, like you can network. Somebody has a connection here, somebody who's working in the US but has a connection here, you could get a job like that by networking. So IFT is there, and they do have discounts for students, active enrolled students, or somebody who has just graduated. So there's a lot of those kind of resources where you can be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you're like, well, I'm not there yet, I'm still a little bit introverted and all that, start with those conversations, start with those college, university events, and then slowly expand your network.
I love that. And I think that's going to be like a great place to start, to end it. I think that those so many like great resources you've mentioned throughout for someone to check it out, and I'll make sure to link those in the show notes. Apara, thank you so much for coming on the show. I loved like learning about honestly like these are just like a lot of good tips that like someone can implement today, and I think that those listening are really going to appreciate it. And again, you don't have to go into food safety for them. Like it's for all different roles. So thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Thank you so much, Veronica. It's been a pleasure.